back, relax, and maybe get yourself a snack. Me and you gonna have a little chat about books. Hi guys! So I am here today to review a short story collection for you, and that is this one. It's called The Beginning of the World in the Middle of the Night, and it's by Jen Campbell, and this is the proof copy, so I'll put a picture up of what the final copy is going to look like, because it is even more, even though it's hardly possible, but it is even more beautiful than this one. But I love this one, and I love the other proof copy that was available too. I was sent this from the publisher because I really was excited for this book to come out. I know Jen, she has a YouTube channel, she's excellent. She is an author, she's a YouTuber, she's just kind of got her finger in everything. She's fantastically talented, does a lot for other people, and is just one of those people who you can't help but love. So I'll put a link to her channel, but this book was excellent. It was so good. It is her first proper sort of adult fiction book, because she's recently published a children's book called Franklin's Flying Bookshop. I'll put a link to that where I reviewed it in the cards and down below. But this book is her first adult fiction, and it was so good. So good. I find short story collections can be a bit hit or miss for me. Sometimes they're great, sometimes they're terrible. Often it's a mixture of both, and I tend to find that usually you have some you really like and some that are just boring and some that are kind of in the middle, and it's a mixed bag. But this collection was not that. I think there was only one story in the whole thing that was a little bit too short for my liking, and I didn't really take that much from it. Every other story, excellent. So good. And so thought-provoking and wonderful and whimsical and magical and just kind of mad, but I loved it. Jen has an imagination like no one else. She can think outside the box in ways that I never could, and she does describe things and think of things and evoke things that are just so weird and bizarre and strange. It's magical realism through and through. It's bizarre, it's wonderful and wacky and whimsical and everything you kind of want it to be when you talk about magical realism. I like my magical realism weird. I think it's fun, I think it's cool, I think it definitely has a stream of consciousness, a poetry, a lyricism to it, and this collection really evokes all of that. If you know Jen, if you watch her channel or you just have read her other stuff, then you will probably feel like this collection is seeing a bit further into her. I feel like every story in this has a little bit of Jen inside it, and you can see that when you're reading it. Particularly some of them were more personal than others and just had this real sense of like connecting to the author and enjoying their stories and finding out what they think and how they think. It was just great. I'm going to talk about a few of my favourite stories, although I did enjoy basically everyone in this collection. So I mean, I could talk about them all, but it would be a very long video. So I'm going to talk about a couple of my favourites from this, but it has 12 different stories. So some of my favourites were the first story in this collection, which is called Animals. Animals was very fairy tale inspired. It was pretty grim, it was pretty peculiar. I would say that it had a sense of the familiar, but also a sense of the strange. It was curious, it was quirky, it was weird. It was definitely my kind of story. It felt like it was made for me, and I really enjoyed it, and I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 stars. Another one I particularly loved was Plum Pie, Zombie Green, Yellow Bee and Purple Monster, which was about a camp where children can go if they are a bit strange or if they have plants growing out of them or inside them somewhere. So children who have plant related illnesses, like they have plants growing inside them or they have plants sprouting from them. It's definitely weird, it's definitely a bit weird, but it worked so well. It was visceral, it was visual, it was really lovely at times as well, because the characters connected to one another and talked, and they had this connection via this one girl who they'd lost, and they made the whole story about that, and it was beautiful. I loved it so much. It was very much evocative. I would say it was the most easy to visualize, and it felt like it was a snippet into an entire world, and I would read a book about this world. So again, I gave that one a 4.5. One of the ones I gave 5 stars to was The Beginning of the World in the Middle of the Night. This is a story that is between two characters, Evelyn and Julian, and in the middle of the night Evelyn wakes up and she starts talking to Julian about the apple tree that is in their yard and the beginnings of that apple tree and the beginnings of their lives and their different adventures that they've had together and the beginnings of everything. It's really, really beautifully inspired by mythology, by religion. There's lots of different snippets of other things that are kind of inserted into the story, but it's done really well and really subtly, and I do think that Jen knows a way of talking that makes you just think this is completely convincing, in that it would be a conversation you might have at 4 in the morning with someone that you were in love with. It's so like that. It just feels like you're actually there at 3 a.m. talking about this crazy stuff that comes out only when you're quite tired and sleepy and upset or sad or happy or whatever it might be, but it really felt like it captured the moment, and I really loved that, so I gave it 5 stars. Another one that I gave 5 stars to was Bright White Hearts, and this story, honestly, out of the whole collection, felt the most raw and the most personal to me, because I think if you know anything about Jen, then you can see her inserting herself into this story in ways that are very personal, very close to her heart. It is magical realism, and so of course she's not exactly the character that's described, but it feels like there is so much connection between the author and the characters in this one. It feels very fluid, very, very meandering, very beautiful. I just loved it. It was really stream of consciousness, this one, and it kind of jumped all over the place, but it worked really well for me because from watching her, I know her, and I think that this story just worked for Jen's style so well. There were a couple of other stories in this that I also really enjoyed. I loved the Coffin Hotel one, which was about a hotel with coffins that you can go and stay in, and they were kind of conning people. It was a lot of fun, and there were some more magical based ones. The stream of consciousness kind of runs throughout the entire story. It does feel like there's a wave that you're riding along. It doesn't necessarily feel like you're being told a story. It feels more like you're in the story, you're floating along, you're part of it, and you can't really get away. I really, really like that. I know it's not for everyone, but for me it worked wonderfully well, and I would certainly recommend picking up this when it comes out on the 2nd of November from Two Roads. So I will put a link to Jen's website where you can get it below, or you can just look on any bookshop or wherever. But yeah, I really am glad that I have this, and it's definitely going to get pride of place on my shelf. I ended up giving the collection as a whole a 4.5 out of 5 stars because nearly every story got 4, 5 or 4.5 stars from me, so it definitely felt like it deserved that. And I would certainly love to hear your thoughts in the comments below if you have read this, or if you've read any other books that sound similar that you think I might enjoy. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you very soon in my next video. Bye guys!
Thank you for watching my video today. Go pick up a book, then come back and chat with me again.